he was nearly silenced for his beliefs during Nicaragua's civil unrest, yet today, Pedro Bismarck Chau stands before the altar of Newark's Grand Cathedral, appointed by Pope Leo XIV to shepherd nearly 1 million souls. But why him? What secret did the Pope see in a man who once preached in secret, served the deaf, and quietly redefined the meaning of missionary priesthood? And what does this say about the Pope's bold new vision, one that favors humility over hierarchy, and inclusion over institution? Stay with us as we unravel the gripping rise of Archbishop Chau, the real reason behind his appointment, and an unexpected twist involving a prophetic dream, a forgotten ministry, and a game-changing strategy for evangelization in America. Let's begin. Number 1. From Nicaragua to Newark, a story of faith across borders. At just 10 years old, Pedro Bismarck Chau witnessed armed militias storming his neighborhood. His family prayed behind shuttered windows as Managua erupted in flames. Fast forward 5 decades, and the same boy, now a priest, receives a call from Rome. How does a child of war, raised in a land torn by revolution, become a trusted voice in Pope Leo XIV's reshaping of American Catholic leadership? Born in Managua, Nicaragua, in 1964, Chau's earliest memories are steeped in the tensions of a country gripped by revolution. His Catholic faith wasn't a luxury, it was a lifeline. As chaos deepened, his family joined the wave of migrants fleeing persecution. They arrived in the U.S. with little more than devotion and hope. As a young immigrant in New Jersey, Chau struggled with language, identity, and the weight of survivor's guilt. But something stirred each time he entered the church. The feeling of belonging beyond borders. Bilingual from an early age, Chau began assisting in Spanish masses, translating confessions and homilies for elderly immigrants who felt lost in their new homeland. He eventually joined the seminary, not out of ambition, but conviction. His formation was shaped by service in immigrant parishes, prison chaplaincies, and deaf ministries. He understood the Catholic Church as more than dogma, it was a lifeboat for the displaced. When he was named rector of the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark, one of the largest Gothic churches in the U.S., he brought with him not only liturgical precision but a spiritual intimacy grounded in exile, reconciliation, and multicultural witness. Now, as newly appointed auxiliary bishop of Newark, Chau stands at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. His appointment by Pope Leo XIV isn't just personal recognition, it's a symbolic move that echoes through the entire U.S. Church. A preference for leaders who carry the wounds of the people they serve. But behind Chau's appointment lies something even more surprising, a Vatican dream, a forgotten ministry, and a strategy that could redefine how Catholicism is preached in America. Let's take a closer look. Number 2. Why Newark? The Vatican's strategic American choice. Why would the Vatican focus its attention on Newark, of all places, right now? Is this just another episcopal appointment, or a sign of something deeper stirring in the Catholic life of America's urban centers? Newark, New Jersey, may not command the same attention as Los Angeles or New York, but in the eyes of the Church, it's become a barometer of American Catholic resilience. Home to more than 1 million Catholics, many of whom are immigrants or first-generation Americans, Newark is a spiritual crossroads. Cultures, languages, and liturgical traditions converge within its borders, especially at the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart, where Vietnamese, Spanish, Tagalog, and English prayers rise together under the same vaulted ceiling. The Archdiocese of Newark has long been known as a pastoral challenge and a beacon of diversity. With parishes serving communities from Haiti, the Philippines, Korea, Nigeria, and Latin America, it reflects both the beauty and the strain of a church that is constantly shifting and growing. In recent years, that strain has been felt more deeply. Urban dioceses like Newark face declining vocations, economic hardship, and the need to evangelize in an increasingly secular environment. It's here that Pope Leo XIV has made a calculated, pastoral move, appointing Father Pedro Bismarck Chau, a man forged by migration, bilingual fluency, and a deep sacramental sensibility. Chau's experience with multicultural ministry is not incidental, it is essential. The Vatican is not simply filling a vacancy, it's planting strategy, planting hope. In choosing Newark for this appointment, the Holy Father affirms a truth that often goes overlooked, that the future of the American Church may well be multilingual, urban, and immigrant-rooted. Newark, with its high-stakes complexity, becomes a testing ground, and perhaps a model, for how the Church can walk beside its people in times of change. But why now? What larger shifts in the Church's vision prompted this timing, and what might Chau's appointment reveal about how Rome sees America's spiritual map evolving? Number 3. The hidden power of youth ministry. Before the mitre, before the bishop's ring, there was a gymnasium full of teenagers. How does leading a group of restless high schoolers or skeptical college students prepare someone for the spiritual governance of over 1 million souls? Father Pedro Bismarck Chau's rise to the episcopacy wasn't paved only through theology textbooks or cathedral offices. It was shaped, quietly, steadily, through years of walking alongside the young church. His deep pastoral roots trace back to Catholic youth and campus ministry across New Jersey, including Rutgers University, NJIT, and the CYO. In these spaces, Chau didn't just organize retreats or lead prayer circles. He listened. He fielded the honest, burning questions of teenagers navigating identity, anxiety, and spiritual doubt. He sat with immigrant students carrying unspoken burdens. He offered sacraments to college students who hadn't seen a confessional since confirmation. And he built bridges between a church often seen as distant and a generation longing to be heard. More than a spiritual babysitter, Chau became a trusted spiritual father. His presence was consistent, his teaching authentic, and his compassion real. He was as comfortable on a basketball court as he was at the altar, redefining what priestly presence meant to young Catholics. And in a time when youth disaffiliation from religion is one of the Church's most pressing concerns, this ministry became more than a job. It became a proving ground. This is where leadership rooted in vulnerability was born. It's where Chau honed the art of healing through presence, discernment, and joy. He learned to lead not from above, but from among, meeting others where they are and inviting them into something deeper. These years weren't a side project. They were formation. And now, as auxiliary bishop, Chau brings this same pastoral heartbeat to an entire archdiocese. But what exactly makes his style of ministry so different, and what does it mean for the Church's future? Number 4. Chau's triple language gift: English, Spanish, and sign language. In a crowded church, the priest raises his hands, not to speak, but to sign. What happens when a bishop doesn't just speak to his flock, but speaks their language, literally? In today's multilingual, multicultural church, communication isn't just a tool, it's a mission. And for newly appointed auxiliary Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau, that mission is deeply personal. He is one of the rare bishops in the United States who can minister directly in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language, ASL, without a translator standing beside him. Born to Vietnamese parents, raised in New Orleans, and ordained in the Archdiocese of Newark, Chau knows what it means to live at a cultural crossroads. But it's his pastoral fluency that truly sets him apart. When he preaches to Latino Catholics in Spanish, it's not a recitation, it's a dialogue rooted in shared experience. When he signs a homily to deaf Catholics, it's not an adaptation, it's a direct encounter. No barrier. No filter. Just presence. In Catholic tradition, language has always held sacramental weight. God speaks creation into being. The Word becomes flesh. The liturgy itself is word and gesture united. For communities often on the margins, like deaf Catholics or immigrant families, language access means spiritual belonging. Chau's ability to proclaim the gospel across these three linguistic worlds isn't a novelty. It's a restoration of dignity. At a time when many dioceses struggle to find even one priest trained in ASL, Bishop Chau's ministry offers hope. Imagine a confirmation mass where the bishop signs every blessing. Or a Spanish-speaking mother hearing her story reflected in a homily crafted for her heart. Chau doesn't simply translate words, he embodies communion. This isn't just a skill set. It's a pastoral lifeline. And it opens doors to a church that listens, welcomes, and speaks with clarity and compassion to all her children. So what does a multilingual, multicultural, and multisensory ministry look like in action? The answer begins not in a cathedral, but in a confession line. Number 5. The Scholar Priest, Why Counseling Degrees Matter to the Vatican. A man walks into a confessional, burdened not just by sin, but by trauma. The priest on the other side doesn't just listen. He understands. Can a background in professional counseling reshape how bishops shepherd souls in crisis? Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau brings something quietly revolutionary to the episcopacy: academic formation in psychology and professional counseling. With a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in professional counseling from Seton Hall University, he is part of a growing movement within the Church, clergy trained not only in theology and liturgy but in mental health sciences. For centuries, the confessional has been a sacred place of healing. But in today's world, where trauma, anxiety, depression, and burnout often mask spiritual struggles, many priests feel under-equipped. That's where Chau stands out. His training enables him to approach pastoral care with clinical awareness and deep compassion, blending theology with trauma-informed care. This is no accident. Pope Leo XIV has consistently emphasized the need for priests who are emotionally intelligent and pastorally attuned. His vision for a 21st-century church includes leaders who know when to offer spiritual direction and when to refer someone to therapy. Chau embodies this integration. He is fluent not just in multiple languages, but in the emotional vocabulary of today's wounded faithful. In parishes, schools, hospitals, and even chancery offices, clergy are increasingly on the front lines of mental health crises. The Vatican knows this. That's why bishops like Chau are not outliers, they're prototypes. He doesn't see psychology and spirituality as rivals, but as partners in healing the human person. From trauma-informed homilies to grief-sensitive pastoral plans, Chau's scholarship makes him more than a spiritual leader. It makes him a lifeline for Catholics navigating invisible wounds. And what happens when such a scholar priest stands face to face with pain, addiction, or despair, not in theory, but in person? The next chapter begins with an open rectory door and a bishop who knows how to listen. Number 6. The Quiet Architect, His Role Behind the Scenes. Before he wore the mitre, Chau helped decide who would wear the collar. What does it mean when a future bishop is trusted to shape the very priesthood he'll later lead? Long before Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau was appointed to the episcopacy by Pope Leo XIV, he was already quietly shaping the future of the Church in Newark, from the inside. As a member of the Archdiocese of Newark's Priest Personnel Board and Council of Priests, Chau helped guide critical decisions about priest assignments, parish leadership, and pastoral strategy. These boards are not ceremonial. They are the hidden engines of diocesan life, places where reputations are tested, vocations are discerned, and communities are quietly reshaped. And Chau wasn't just sitting in the room, he was listening deeply, asking hard questions, and building consensus with pastoral wisdom. In a church still healing from past wounds of clericalism and mismanagement, trust is everything. These behind-the-scenes roles are only given to priests who are seen as prudent, discreet, and attuned to both spiritual and human needs. Chau's presence on these boards spoke volumes. It meant his brother priests respected his judgment, and that the archbishop saw in him not just pastoral skill, but long-term leadership potential. The Council of Priests is often referred to as the Senate of the bishop. Its members are voices of the presbyterate, called to advise the bishop on major decisions. For Chau, participation here was more than governance, it was formation. He learned how dioceses breathe, how pastoral challenges unfold, and how the quiet architecture of the Church's daily life is built through prayer, prudence, and the Spirit's prompting. Now, as auxiliary bishop, Chau brings not only theological depth and linguistic fluency, but administrative experience forged in the trenches of priestly service. He knows what it means to make hard decisions with mercy. And that's exactly what the Church needs now. So how does a bishop who has shaped priestly life from behind the curtain now lead from the altar? The answer comes when quiet service becomes visible grace. Number 7. The Passing of the Torch, Bishop Studorus's Resignation. One bishop steps down. Another rises. But this is more than a changing of titles. Why did Bishop Gregory Studorus choose now to step aside, and what legacy is Bishop Chau stepping into? At 77, Bishop Gregory Studorus submitted his resignation to Pope Leo XIV in accordance with canon law. But this wasn't just a formality, it marked the close of a profound pastoral era for one of New Jersey's most vibrant, complex diocesan regions, Hudson County. Studorus, who served faithfully for decades, was not a headline seeker. His ministry was incarnational, deeply embedded in the struggles and hopes of urban parishes where poverty, immigration, and faith intersect daily. Fluent in the spiritual language of ordinary people, he was known to walk the streets of Jersey City, West New York, and Union City not as a prelate above, but as a pastor among. His retirement comes not as a retreat from duty, but as an act of fidelity. By stepping aside, Studorus ensures that the archdiocese can be renewed with fresh energy. Yet his contributions endure a strengthened diaconate, intentional outreach to underserved immigrant communities, and a pastoral approach marked by listening, humility, and presence. Into this legacy steps Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau. Born in Vietnam, formed in Newark, and fluent in 4 languages, Chau is uniquely equipped to continue this mission. Hudson County, dense, diverse, and alive with cultural Catholicism, requires a bishop who can minister with heart and navigate with skill. And Chau's background suggests a leader who listens first, then acts. The timing of this transition also signals continuity. Chau is not an outsider parachuting in. He knows the people. He knows the pews. And he knows the pastoral map Studorus helped shape. This is not a changing of vision, it's a deepening of commitment. But what makes Chau's appointment different? It's not just what he inherits, it's how he's already proven himself in the heart of the city. Number 8. Chau's upcoming ordination, what to expect on September 8th. September 8th will be more than a date on the calendar, it will be a moment that echoes far beyond Newark's walls. What makes this episcopal ordination at the Cathedral Basilica not just a ceremony, but a landmark moment for the Church in the United States? The Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark will host a historic liturgy on September 8, 2025, as Father Pedro Bismarck Chau is ordained auxiliary bishop. This event marks a turning point for the Archdiocese of Newark and for Catholic communities across the nation, signaling fresh leadership in a time of both challenge and hope. The ceremony promises to be a rich tapestry of tradition and solemnity, steeped in centuries-old Catholic rites. Attendees will witness the sacred laying on of hands, the anointing with holy chrism, and the presentation of episcopal symbols such as the mitre, ring, and crozier, each signifying the weight and grace of the bishop's new responsibilities. Among the distinguished guests will be Archbishop Robert Francis Prevost, other bishops from the United States and abroad, clergy from Newark's parishes, religious sisters and brothers, and countless lay faithful. This convergence highlights the communal nature of episcopal ministry. The new bishop is not alone but part of a living, breathing church. Bishop Chau's ordination also embodies the growing diversity of the American Catholic Church. Born in Vietnam, raised in the vibrant cultural mosaic of Newark, and fluent in multiple languages, Chau's journey reflects the universal church's reach into immigrant communities and the vital role these communities play in the faith's future. This event will be both a spiritual celebration and a public witness to renewal. For those who follow the Church's path closely, it's a day to watch closely. Because what unfolds in Newark's Grand Cathedral will ripple across dioceses, inspiring hope, resilience, and renewed pastoral vision. As preparations build and anticipation grows, the question remains, how will Bishop Chau's new mission reshape the face of faith and service in Newark and beyond? Number 9. Pope Leo XIV American Strategy, or the bigger picture. Is Bishop Chau's appointment a single local decision, or part of a profound Vatican strategy unfolding across America? What does the pattern of Pope Leo XIV's recent episcopal choices tell us about the future face of Catholic leadership in the United States? Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau's rise in Newark is far from an isolated event. It's a vivid illustration of Pope Leo XIV's evolving vision for the American Church, one that embraces cultural diversity, deep pastoral care, and dynamic urban engagement. Across the United States, the Pope has been appointing leaders who reflect the rich mosaic of the Catholic faithful, many of whom come from immigrant backgrounds, bilingual communities, or urban neighborhoods facing complex social challenges. Pope Leo XIV's emphasis is clear: the Church must be attuned to the realities of the people it serves. Chau's personal story. Born in Vietnam, raised in New Jersey's urban tapestry, fluent in English and Vietnamese, and deeply rooted in his community's needs, embodies this vision. His appointment aligns with others in major U.S. dioceses, where new bishops are chosen not just for doctrinal fidelity but for cultural fluency and pastoral sensitivity. This shift reflects a broader Vatican strategy responding to the rapid demographic and cultural changes reshaping American Catholicism. By appointing bishops like Chau, the Holy See signals a commitment to urban renewal, outreach to immigrant populations, and a hands-on pastoral approach that resonates with young people and marginalized communities alike. It's a movement toward leaders who bridge traditional faith with contemporary realities, leaders who can build vibrant, inclusive parishes and foster deeper connections in an increasingly complex society. Historically, such strategic appointments mark pivotal moments in the Church's evolution, echoing earlier eras when the Vatican responded to waves of immigration or social change by selecting leaders best equipped to guide the faithful through transformation. Pope Leo XIV appears to be writing a new chapter in this ongoing story, one that holds promise for the vitality and unity of the Church in North America. As Bishop Chau prepares for his ordination, the eyes of the Church watch closely. How will this broader vision unfold, and what fresh paths will it carve for future generations? Bonus point: Faith in Motion. What Bishop Chau teaches us about servant leadership. How does one live a quiet life that leaves a powerful impact? Bishop Chau's story offers a profound answer. What can ordinary laypeople learn from a bishop whose ministry often unfolds behind the scenes, in humble service and steady faithfulness? Bishop Pedro Bismarck Chau's path is not defined by grand gestures or public spectacle, but by consistent, faithful service. Before his appointment as auxiliary bishop of Newark, Chau quietly dedicated himself to parish ministry, education, and pastoral care, always focusing on the needs of others rather than seeking the spotlight. His life exemplifies the biblical call to servant leadership, where influence is measured by humility and willingness to serve rather than by titles or power. In a world often obsessed with visibility and accolades, Chau's journey reminds us that true leadership flows from selfless commitment and surrender to God's will. His ministry reflects the teaching of Jesus, who washed the feet of his disciples and invited all followers to serve one another in love. This model of leadership is as vital for laypeople as it is for clergy. Every act of kindness, every moment spent lifting others up, carries eternal significance. Historically, the Church has been shaped by countless quiet servants whose impact was felt deeply, even if their names remain unknown. Chau's story joins this tradition, showing that the heartbeat of the Church depends on faithful individuals living out their vocation in everyday life, whether in families, workplaces, or communities. This perspective encourages all Catholics to embrace their own call to servant leadership, no matter their role or status. His example challenges us to consider: how can we embody faith in action, making a difference through small, steady acts of love and service? In doing so, we continue the work of building the kingdom here on earth. As Bishop Chau steps into his new role, his humble approach invites us all to reflect: how might our own quiet faithfulness shape the future of the Church? As Bishop-elect Pedro Bismarck Chau prepares to enter the episcopate, his story teaches us that holiness often flourishes not in loud proclamations but in silent, patient, and unseen acts of love. From counseling college students to shepherding diverse urban communities, Chau embodies Christ's call: the greatest among you must be your servant. One of the most striking moments in his journey is how Pope Leo XIV's choice reflects a clear shift toward leaders deeply rooted in cultural sensitivity and grassroots service, reminding us that church leadership is evolving to meet the needs of modern, multicultural America. Remember, true impact isn't always about grandeur, but about faithful service day by day. Questions for reflection. What aspect of Bishop Chau's journey to leadership resonated with you the most, and why? How do you see servant leadership shaping the future of the Church in your community? In what ways can laypeople follow Bishop Chau's example of quiet, impactful ministry in their daily lives? Drop your thoughts below. We love hearing your perspective. And if you appreciate this update, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more from Sacred Pulse Times.